2020 was a very challenging year, and one of the things we saw was so many people moving to the video world, to live video world, live streaming world, which I love, of course. But one of the things we keep asking is there a place to blogging? Is blogging dead? And also, social media, it's moving so fast, so many upcoming platforms. How can we work? And also, how can we put together blogging and social media to work on our behalf? If you want to know about it, stay tuned because I'll be back in a moment. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Special Marketing Live Show. I think it's, if I'm not wrong, it's the second episode of the 7th season. Today, we're going to have the amazing Mike Halton to talk about two things that he knows a lot about, which are blogging and also social media. Because by these days, I think it's very important to talk about both in separate ways and also how we can work together so we can get more audience, we can get more evolved community using those two amazing platforms. Okay, so if you are there watching us, please let us know where you are, on which platform you are watching us. Just if you have some questions, just write it down in comment section so we can help you. Okay, so let's bring Mike to the screen because he's on the basement like usually. Hello,
hey,
Mike.
Marco, thanks for having me.
Well, it's a pleasure, Mike. It was a long time ago I wanted to bring you to my show because you are one of the most amazing guys on the content marketing world. You know a lot about the topic. Also, you know a lot about social media, know a lot about blogging. So I think you're the perfect person to bring to my show to talk about it. And also, I think it's now more than ever, it's a good time to talk about blogging. For instance, yesterday someone asked me some questions in the the background about this. But first of all, I will ask you, Mike, please to introduce yourself, and then we can go to the conversation. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure and honor to be here with you and in your audience. I'm Mike Alton. I work full-time for AgoraPulse, which is the #1 rated social media management tool. And I have this really cool job there. I get to manage all of our partnerships with influencers, with other brands. So I put on events like Social Pulse Summit, like you attended last quarter, and I do all of our influencer marketing. But then I also have side projects. I have all these other hats because I have my own blog that I started almost a decade ago, the Social Media Hat. And I spun off of that a couple years ago, Blogging Brute. So I've got one site devoted to social media, another site devoted to blogging, and I'm an author. I wrote this book here, The Ultimate Guide to Social Media, with my friends Stephanie Liu, Jen Herman, and Amanda Robinson, because we formed the 360 Marketing Squad. So there's a lot going on. That was a lot, and I hope that wasn't too much for all you.
No, not at all. Well, we have nice people here. Arnaldo Mefano from Brazil. Hello, Arnaldo. And we have Tim's on here. Hello, Tim. Good to see you.
Hey, guys.
Good to see you. Well, Mike, I think one of the big things by these days is how blogging came to these days and which challenges is facing by these days blogging, because I think it's one of the big things, by one of the big questions we have to, because I see so many people worried about, does it's still a thing to blog. Your thoughts on this?
Blogging is still a thing. It's not dead. It's not going anywhere anytime soon. And I understand the question. I understand why this continues to come up year over year, because new forms of media, new forms of communication and engaging with our audience continue to come up. We're doing live video. This wasn't a thing, obviously, a decade ago. And even in more recent years, we've had short form vertical video content through stories and TikTok and so on. And over the past 6 months, social audio has exploded with Clubhouse and then Twitter Spaces. And now Facebook's come out with their own version of social audio. So these are all things that have happened that marketers and businesses and even non-marketers and non-business owners see all this and think, oh, okay, I don't need to create written content anymore. I can just go live on video, which to an extent is true. You could do this instead of creating written content, except when you go to Google and you do a Google search, it's not short form, tall video content that comes up in that Google search, is it? No, our audience is going to Google to find solutions. And even though there'll sometimes be a couple of YouTube videos, most of the search results are written, actual content that exists on our own properties or other people's properties, right? Not the social channels. So from that perspective, if we want to bring in traffic to our websites, if we want to bring in interested targeted prospects who might potentially buy from us, we have to create written content. Now, that doesn't have to be a blog in the sense that we're publishing written content on a regular basis and we're pushing it out there. That doesn't have to be that way because Google doesn't care. Google is not looking to see whether you have a blog or pages or articles or FAQs. Google is just looking and scanning the written content that you have in whatever format you have. So consider that when we're thinking about blogging. I usually refer to the more general term of content marketing, this umbrella term that includes blogging, of course, but it also includes these concepts of creating written content, doing search engine optimization, doing our homework, and finding out what are people looking for and searching for so that we understand that search intent and creating that content. You can start with video, but you have to end somehow with written content.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the good things you mentioned is SEO and how things work. And if you go to Google, because lots of times the conversation starts there. But the other thing, and this conversation I had, I think it was kind of 2 years ago, with a copywriter, and he told me, look, what do you remind better? A book you're reading, or for instance, a movie you watched? And it's the power of the written word, right?
Right. Now, one of the interesting things is that everybody learns differently. So some people might recall a film, or they might recall me speaking more than they would be able to retain reading the text on a page. Or they might learn better by listening just to the sound of my voice via podcast or something like that. So I think it also is important for businesses to think about and understand what their audience's preferred learning styles are. In an ideal world, you'd start with video and you'd create your content with video and then spin that into a blog post and a podcast so that you're hitting all the potential mediums and learning styles. You don't necessarily have to do it that way. That takes a little bit extra time and some extra resources. But if we wanted to be truly universal and ubiquitous in how we're reaching our target audience, that might be one way to do it.
Absolutely. And the other thing I think, and was precisely a question that me and Arnaldo, we were talking about, was, is there a place, because so many people about video, and I thought, well, it's kind of, let's think this way. We have Netflix, we have some series there that came from books, but there are lots of people that keep rather to read books than just go and watch the TV, right?
Absolutely. And I don't think I'm blowing anybody's mind when I say oftentimes the books are better than the movies. People say that all the time, and that's because with
absolutely
the book, you've got 300-400 pages to go into depth and allow our own imaginations, right, to fill in some of the blanks. Whereas the movie, the producer can allow us to imagine what the scene would look like. They have to create it. They're the ones who are doing the imagining. They're the ones who are controlling it. So there's a little bit of a forced narrative with video. Like right now, you can't control what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just you throw that ball up and you hope I hit it, right? that's the way these interviews work. And Tim Stone, who's watching right now, he totally understands this. He does these interviews with Jim Fuse, and they're the same way. They're interviewing somebody else, and they're throwing out these questions, and hopefully, they have done their homework. They know who they're bringing on, and they have some expectation as to what the response is going to be. But you could ask me a question, and I could choose to just say, "Yeah, you're right."
Absolutely.
That doesn't make for good video. That doesn't make for a good show. There's no content there. There's no meat there. So yeah, it's a totally different medium, and we have to be mindful of that fact when we're creating it, whether it's for marketing or for entertainment or whatever the case might be.
Absolutely. And the other thing, I think, and for me, it's the big point here. There's no place for me for just fluffy blog posts, but for good blog posts. Those blog posts where they go in deep, they will answer the question you had before going on Google. Which advices, Mike, will you give to someone who wants to become a good blogger? How to make step by step in a good way?
I would definitely start by doing my homework, and I've mentioned this before, and I'll mention it over and over again because I think it's really, really important. If you approach any kind of content creation, whether it's video, written, audio, whatever the case might be, with the idea that you know what's best, and you're going to create this content in a certain way without talking to anybody, without finding out if anybody actually cares or wants to know what that might be, you're taking a huge risk, a potentially huge risk by investing that time to build a site, to write the content or shoot the content, whatever it is, and then potentially get zero response and interest. And I'm speaking from experience here. I did just that. I created content that I thought my audience would want to know about, and I was wrong. And I wasted a lot of time. So do some homework. Eric Ries wrote the book, The Lean Startup. And he was talking to mostly SaaS companies, right? Startup entrepreneurs who want to build a company and they have an idea for a solution. The same process will work well for bloggers. So I encourage bloggers or potential bloggers or any entrepreneur to go read The Lean Startup and follow his approach of creating what's called a lean canvas, where he identifies who his target audience is, or your audience is, what is the solution that we're trying to provide in this case, and what are some unique values and pain points and selling points that we can roll into that. And then once you've written all that out and maybe done some Google searches or used a tool like SEMrush to actually search for keywords and see what people are searching on, then you go and talk to people. This is before you've built anything, right? As a new blogger, this is before you've written a single word. Let's go out and talk to a few people and vet, if you will, our idea for what it is that we're going to do before we've invested the time. And then once you've done that, take that feedback. Hopefully it's positive, but if it's not, we've learned something, right? If I talk to 25 people about my idea for a website about box turtles and nobody's interested in this content, nobody wants to know anything about box turtles, that should stop me, or at least put some brakes on my idea from moving forward and cause me to rethink the plan and pivot or abandon it, because again, I don't want to waste my valuable, precious time. So we talk to people, we vet the idea, and then we do what Eric would call an MVP, a minimum viable product. In the case of a blog, let's create one post, maybe two, and push it out there. Show it to some friends. Show it to these people that we talked to, these that we've already interviewed, our focus group, if you will, and let's get some input. Did they like the writing? Were they interested? Were they engaged? Did they learn anything? Did they find value there? Would they pay for something related to the content that you just created? Because ultimately, as a blogger, unless you're just doing this for fun, you want to sell something, whether it's affiliate links or a product you might create, or yourself, your time as a service, as a consultant. I did that for a long time. The content has to lead to that sale. So this is all under the guise of doing our homework, doing some research. Before we get 50, 60 posts into the weeds, and we realize that we're creating all this content and we're not getting the results that we expected.
Absolutely. Because I think it's crucial to make this research, and I didn't make. Which which tools do you recommend? Because I think it's one of the good things we have by these days, and digital marketing allows us to have these tools to find what people are asking for, what needs they have, which keywords they are searching. Which tools do you recommend, Mike?
Yeah, there's several where you can start, and most of them don't cost anything. The easiest place to go first is Google. Just Google.com and start typing in a phrase, a question that you think your target audience would be interested in, and Google will autocomplete it for you. Google, how to start a, Google will finish blog, travel blog, food blog. Google will finish that sentence, which tells you other people are searching for that. Google's not going to autocomplete with something that nobody's ever typed into Google. So there's a first place to go to start to get a sense for what do people want to know about. Another place you can go, again, for free is Quora. You can go to Quora, drill down into some specific topics, and see the actual questions your target audience is asking. And at the same time, you can see answers from potentially your competition. Right? You can, if I'm going from the blogging perspective, I can go into Quora and I can see what great bloggers like Ryan Biddulph and Adam Cannell and Darren Rouse have said in response to old questions on Quora. And while I'm doing audience research, I'm also now doing competitive research and saying, oh, okay, Darren answered that question that way. I can do better. That should be hopefully your response to any time that you see the way the competition is addressing a particular topic online. Oh, I can do better, because you need to do better if you want to rank well. So that's where I would start. Now we need to do some hardcore digging. We've got some ideas about the questions people are asking, and hopefully we've kind of matched that theoretically with some of the solutions and answers we might provide with our own content. Now we need to go to a tool. I usually start with SEMrush, but if you don't have budget yet, you can use Google's Keyword Planner, which is free as part of their ad account. The trick with Google Keyword Planner is it's not going to store that information and give you ongoing results. That's why I like SEMrush, but SEMrush is like $100 a month, and maybe we don't have that to start. So either way, you're going to go into either one of those tools and you're going to plug in one or more of those search phrases. We're talking like 3, 4, maybe 5 words tops. That's a searchable phrase. And the tool's going to tell you exactly how many people per month are typing in that exact phrase in a Google search. And you can limit it by region. You can do North America, Europe, Australia, wherever you are in the world, wherever you want to target, and then see what is the value? What is the search intent? Because if it's 0, if it's 10, if it's 100 people a month searching on that particular phrase, we need to rethink what we're talking about. At least rethink whether we're going to focus on that phrase. If it's millions of people, okay, great. That's awesome. But then the other thing that those tools will tell you is, what's the competition like? Because if it's millions of people searching on that phrase, we probably haven't focused enough. We're probably only using 1 or 2 words. Like if I do a thing on blog or blogging, there's tons of people searching on that. It's just too broad and it's too competitive because there's just millions of websites out there that have the word blog or blogging. Every blogger.com site has the word blog or blogging on it. So we want to focus in a little bit. And this is where the tools are really helpful to us, because usually underneath the phrase that we just put in, it comes back as a report with columns and rows. The first row is the phrase that you literally typed in and the results that phrase are getting every month. Below that are suggested phrases. They're variations on a theme. I mentioned before how to start a blog. That's something I like to focus on. I have a blog post called How to Start a Blog, and I write an article every year, how to start a blog, or should you start blogging in 2020? Should you start blogging in 2021? They're all around this central theme of helping people who want to get into blogging. Well, I know when I do the research, How to Start a Blog gets like 10,000 searches per month. That's a pretty great volume. I'm interested in getting a good cut of that volume, and I know from my research that the competition is manageable. It's not insane. I'm not competing with Coca-Cola and CNN. It's manageable. But then the beauty there is Google also, or SEMrush will tell me, hey, how to start a food blog, that gets 8,000 searches a month. How to start a travel blog, how to start a mom blog. All these other variations are there. And these might be topics that I might want to focus on. These might just be great blog posts, right? These might all fit under this umbrella of how to start a blog. So those are some of the tools that I would use, starting with Google itself, going with Quora, and then going on to Google Keyword Planner or SEMrush to really do your homework and vet your ideas for what you should talk about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the other thing which is important is the content in two ways. The first way is to provide good value to your audience, and the second thing is to provide the good value to your audience in a way that Google will notice. Any
Absolutely.
tips about how to structure to make this effective, Mike?
Yeah. So if we've done this, the rest of everything we're going to talk about is easy. The homework is the hard part because you have to sometimes go back and forth and punch in some other, phrases and kind of, think through, okay, can I really talk about this? But once we've done that step and we've written them down, like I offer people a blogging planner where they can write these things down. So we know we're going to do how to start a blog in our example. Now that I know that, I know what to title the main page that I want to rank for. It's got to be how to start a blog, right? I don't want to come up with some other random, overly creative, overly ornate title that doesn't have the actual phrase. The phrase has got to be in there. And then I want to make sure that it's in the meta description. It's in at least one image alt tag. It's in at least one of the section headings because we're going to create a nice sized piece of content. This can't be 250 words. That's not going to rank well with Google. If you want to rank well, it should be 2,500 plus words if possible. And you're going to want to have other pieces of content on your site that also touch on this topic and link up to this one main page. We can get into that structure in a minute. But if you have a decent size piece of content that you're creating, you're going to have some section headings. And if you're using WordPress, you just highlight a sentence or a title and you choose H1 or H2 or H3. H1 is usually the actual title of the article, so that's reserved for the top of the page someplace depending on your theme. But below that, it's just like an outline, right? The first main point, if maybe you have 3 main points, those should be H2. And if you've got some subpoints under those main points, those can be H3 or H4. So make sure in those headings, those H2 headings, you have your focus keyword phrase. Make sure it appears in your first paragraph, your first sentence, if possible. All these are going to be incredibly powerful indicators to Google when a robot, a script, not a human being, but when a script comes to your site and scans the text. They're not looking at the video. Again, this is why blogging isn't dead. They're scanning the text on your page. They're not even looking at your page. I mean, some people don't realize that. They don't come to your site and see your beautiful colors and your font choices and your embedded graphics. They look at the HTML. So if you're ever curious what Google or any other search engine sees, go into your browser under View and click on View Source, and it's going to show you the HTML code gobbledygook of the back end of your site. That's what Google sees. So that's why one of the things that if you're doing search engine optimization, one of the warnings that might come up for your site is that your HTML to text ratio is too high. If you've got lots of script and different kinds of HTML and just a paragraph of text and then a bunch more HTML code, that's not giving Google very much to chew on. So we want a lot of text. So the last piece of advice there that I'll give, again, if you're using WordPress, is install the plugin from Yoast called SEO for WordPress. You install that plugin, the free version's fine. And when you're creating a piece of content, you've got the title field and then the body field where all your text goes. And then below that, there's an SEO for WordPress plugin box. And in that box, there's a field where you can put in your target keyword phrase. So like in my case, for that page, I'd put in how to start a blog. That tells the plugin, oh, that's the phrase Mike wants to focus on. Let me quickly scan the whole post, the whole page, and see where Mike may have missed an opportunity to use that phrase. And it'll tell you. So you even have to write down everything I just said. The plugin will tell you, hey, you haven't put this phrase in any image alt tags. Or maybe you did it in too many because we don't want to go overboard either. It'll totally tell you that. So it'll make it super easy.
Absolutely. Well, we have Jim's also here. Hello,
Hey,
Jim.
Jim.
Welcome. One day I was looking at a video with Neil Patel, and he mentioned something which was kind of a light, which was the main problem on content is not the quality of the content itself, it's the promotion and of the content. Which advices will you give about this, Mike? Because I think it's because okay, we should have in mind SEO, but sometimes we need to give an extra push to the content so we can, because it's the snowball effect. End of story, right? Which other tactics you recommend to promote your content?
Yeah, I've seen that quote, and it's interesting because I don't necessarily agree with Neil that that's just the main problem. People aren't promoting their
Yes.
content in a month, or that quality is not an issue. I don't necessarily agree with that
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
perspective.
Yeah. Yes.
There are people out there that aren't putting enough time and effort into the quality of the content they're putting out, and there are plenty of people that are promoting it just fine. But I understand what he's trying to say here.
Yeah,
at the
absolutely.
end of the day, I understand. In many cases, people aren't doing enough or anything to promote their posts. I mean, I've certainly worked with bloggers where it's a chore for them to create written content, so that by the time they finally get it published, they're like, I'm done. I hit publish and I'm walking away because I'm tired of it. And I understand where they're coming from with that. And to your point, you are 100% right. If we don't promote that content and start to get some traffic coming to it from social media, from our email list, from some paid investment, that's going to detract from that content's ability to rank with Google search. One of the best things you could do for a brand new piece of content is get that out everywhere, promote it everywhere. So then we have tens, hundreds, maybe thousands, if you're fortunate, or if you've been doing this for a while, of people coming from all these other channels into that article. Because again, Google's watching everything that happens with our site in each individual piece of content. And if Google sees Mike's got this new article and lots of people are coming to read it, there's something there. There's interest there. People come to the article, then they share it back out to social media because they love it. Google watches that too. So some people have said that there's no value in social shares. I disagree. The number of social shares itself might not be a ranking factor for Google, but Google is absolutely paying attention to where the traffic is coming from and what they're doing when they're on your site. Are they just bouncing out, or are they reading the whole article? How much time are they spending on the site? Are they going to do something else? This is one of the really subtle things that people can do that is hugely impactful with their content, both in terms of SEO and in terms of actual business results. And that is to have a CTA at the bottom, a call to action at the bottom of every single piece of content that we publish. We have to give our readers something to do next. If they get all the way down to an end of an article, whether it's 500 words or 5,000 words, and we haven't given them a reasonable suggested thing to do next, whether that's download something, sign up for something, buy something, click through to another article, doesn't really matter. Give them something to do next within your site. We kind of leave it up to them to, look around. Okay, should I just click on something in the sidebar? Should I go back to my search results? We leave it up to them. But if we give them the next step and they take that next step, that is an incredibly powerful signal to Google. Now they didn't bounce out of that article. They bounced deeper. They clicked deeper into our site. They spent more time. They had created more sessions within our site. So those are the things that I would look for doing. Absolutely promote it out. Have a checklist for yourself. Send it to your email list. Send it to all your social channels. Drive that initial awareness and send those positive signals to Google.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have you were talking, and I have this question for Mike, because let's think I'm starting, okay? And do you recommend any kind of article for people who are starting?
Well, yeah, if you're just getting into blogging, you can go to bloggingbrute.com. That's what I built that site for. And there's resources there specifically for bloggers who are just starting, because there is a lot to learn. And as with anything new, it's challenging at first to pick and choose, what do I absolutely have to know now versus what I can learn and evolve into and grow into over time. Live streaming is a perfect example, right? This, what you're doing right now, is complicated, it's advanced, and for most people who've never done live streaming, it's overwhelming. How did you get two cameras on at the same time? How did you shift to just one person? How did you do a countdown video? How did you do an intro video in the middle of this? How are you doing an overlay that's like spinning over here over my head? How are you doing all those things? How are you bringing comments onto the screen? These are all things that can be learned. And if we're just getting started into live streaming, many would tell you, oh, you know, if Jim is watching, and Jim's never done this before. Obviously, I know he has, but I use Jim as an example. Jim's coming to me and he says, Mike, I want to get in a live stream, but I've never done it before. Well, we would say, you know, start with your phone. Start with a single device, a single camera, no guest, no fancy overlays and countdowns and multiple channels. Forget about all that. Get comfortable on screen first. Because that's one of the most important things, right?
Absolutely.
You're having me on as a guest because you've seen me on video and you know I can pretty much hold my own when it comes to speaking on video. You don't want to have a video conversation that's filled with ahs and ums and pauses and stutters or poor quality video or poor quality audio. So that's what we teach when it comes to live streaming. Those are the core tenets. Blogging is the same way, right? I'm going to share with you, I've already started to share with you all these different things to think about and consider when you're blogging. But when you first start off, all I want you to do is vet your idea, make sure people really want to know about this particular thing, and then write. Don't worry about the images. Don't worry about all these other things. Create the content and learn and kind of build that blogging muscle, if you will, and then you can grow into more advanced aspects.
Absolutely. And another thing, and I've seen people talking, okay, and I think also it could be good also at the beginning, but I've seen people saying it's good. I've seen other people saying it's not that good, which is guest blogging. Your thoughts on this, Mike?
I love any kind of guest tactic where you're doing exactly what I do right now. I'm on your show. I'm a guest on your show, which means I'm now speaking to your audience. I'm giving you value. Hopefully, I'm creating content for you and helping you to create content, and I'm helping your audience. But I'm also helping myself at the same time, right? Because I'm talking to your audience, many of whom have never heard of me. They don't know who I am. They don't know that I have any expertise in this particular topic. But hopefully, by the end of this segment, they will be like, oh, okay, if I have a blogging question, I'm going to go to Mike Alton. Same thing can happen in every industry, whether it's written blog posts, whether it's being on a video show, whether it's being a guest on an audio show like a podcast. The idea there is when you are the guest, you are providing content and value to that medium's host, and in return, you're getting in front of their audience. And I applaud that because that was kind of the not so secret to my success. I started blogging, like I said, about 10 years ago. I was very heavily invested in Google+. But like anybody starting on any platform, I had 0 followers and slowly grew hundreds and thousands. But then I started guest appearing on other people's live shows. You might know. Most of the people watching might not realize Google+ was huge for live streaming before anybody else was live streaming. It was one of the things that they just never really leveraged and capitalized on and should have. There was no Facebook Live. There was no Twitter Live. There was no LinkedIn Live. There was no YouTube Live. It was only Google+, and you could do up to 10 people at once on a show and still have all the fancy overlays and lower thirds and everything. So that was a thing back then, and people had regular shows. I was often a guest on Mia Voss's Friday show, and I was appearing on other people's shows talking about blogging and social media management tools and so on. And my audience and my reach exploded as a direct result of that guest activity.
Amazing. And we have another person, which was also my guest, Chris Stone. Hello, Chris. Hey, Chris. Good to see you here. It seems that we are at a cafe and our friends are coming up. So good. let me because I think this guest blogging it's such a good thing, and also this collaboration, because we learn so much, and we get this. And also I think one of the good things is, and this doesn't work that the same way on when live streaming, but it works when we are talking about blogging. And Google just love this, which are the backlinks that you
Mm-hmm.
get when you guest blog. Do you want to talk a little bit about how important it is to this backlinking? And again, because for instance, how we can spot, because we could felt in this temptation, which is, okay, let me just see those big blogs or these big bloggers or something, and I will ask them if they want to make some kind of guest blogging. Do you have any tips to how to choose the right person, the right blog to collaborate with, and hopefully get guest blog with there?
Absolutely. So, for context, what you're talking about is definitely an aspect of SEO. And it's definitely an advanced aspect. So if you're literally just starting blogging today, you're watching this show and you've never written a blog post before, don't worry about all this. Come back and watch this in a couple months. So backlinks are when a second website has a link, whether you put it there or they put it there, it doesn't matter. There's a link on that website to your site, whether it's your homepage or an article within your website, doesn't really matter. It's their domain linking to your domain. Google looks at that as a vote of confidence. This website over there, you can't edit it. So either you asked them to put the link there or they chose to put the link there. But either way, that other site, they wanted that link to your site. And Google sees that and says, oh, okay, they must like that site. They must think that that site or this article has some value. Now, Google will go so far as to say, what is the value of this site compared to this site? It's something we call domain authority. And so I mentioned CNN earlier. CNN is one of the most well-respected domains in the world, whether or not you agree with what they say. It's a very, very popular domain, right? With tons of traffic and tons of recognition. Whereas my domain, bloggingbrute.com, most of you have never heard of it before it just came out of my mouth. So those domains are very different in popularity. And so if a CNN.com links to your site versus my site, the CNN.com link is worth more. So to your point, when someone's thinking about getting backlinks and using guest blogging as a strategy for creating backlinks, it's a wonderful strategy. There's a aspect of it of thinking about who we're asking for the link or who we're asking to publish a guest blog post. In the marketing industry, we're not going to publish the CNN, but we're going to look for things like entrepreneur.com, Forbes.com, Inc.com, Huffington Post. Those are some of the best domains in the marketing space to get a link from, which means they're also some of the most challenging, right, in the space. You have to go through a huge process to get approved to publish to one of those sites, and oftentimes they might not even listen to you. They might not even read your request or your application if this is the first time ever you're asking for a backlink. So I would caution the new blogger not to worry about this, as I said before, because if you haven't been creating content of your own, if you haven't established your own reputation, no one else is going to take a risk on you and let you publish to their site for nothing. So have some content of your own that you've been creating, have a presence on social media, and aim a little lower. Let's be a little more realistic about who we're targeting. Look for other bloggers in your niche, people who may be at the same level as you in terms of experience and content creation and audience, maybe a little bit more, but let's not go crazy with that ask at first. And let's get some guest posts under our belt. Let's be able to demonstrate to the entrepreneur.coms of the world, hey, I'm a good writer. Here I can show you. I've written for Social Media Examiner. I've written for Copyblogger. I've written for Mark Schaefer's Grow Marketing. And you can see that content there. Can I write this content for you? Then there's a whole process that you can go through to pitch some of these major articles. But that's the approach that I would take, is to look for other content creators in your niche, whatever it is. It's probably not blogging and marketing like me. Whatever that niche is, find some other content creators that you can work with and offer them the same in return. Let them guest publish for you
Yes,
if they're
absolutely.
interested.
Absolutely. Sounds perfect. Well, Chris is asking if you can buy a copy. Well, I have my account created, but I'm not using it yet. Well, another thing, and you mentioned about social media, it's a good way to promote our content. But as things are evolving, it's not the same as it was 5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. Do you think, first question, do you think that social media still being remains a good place for you to share your content made on the blog? And second thing is how to.
The first answer is yes, absolutely. There's no question that blog content can continue to be shared to social channels. Which social channel is more of a question now than it ever was before, because not every channel is the same, and not every channel is the same for every business and every audience. You might have a lot more success on Facebook than I do, or I might have a lot more success on LinkedIn than you do. Just depends on what it is we're talking about and the audience that we're trying to reach, if they're using that particular platform, and then the audience that we're successful in generating. Because here's another not so secret, right? If you're starting a brand new Twitter account today for your new blogging business, you're starting with 0 followers, just like everybody else who's ever created a Twitter account, by the way. We've all started at 0. And it's important then to nurture and build an audience without expectation, right? You're not building a Twitter audience just to drive traffic to your blog. You're building a community, and the Twitter audience is part of that community. Your Facebook audience is part of that community. Your Instagram audience, and so on. I mean, I can go on and on with all the different social platforms today. So pick a couple. That's going to be where your community lives, and you're going to want to nurture that community. By nurture, I mean not spam them with links every time you publish new content. And again, I'm speaking from personal experience. These are mistakes that I have totally made in the past. I'm not trying to preach, but don't spam them with links. Instead, offer them resources, offer them help, spark conversations and discussion. So now we're kind of getting into the how. How do we share to social media? It's not just blasting the link out to everywhere. Now, I'll be the first to admit I still do this to some extent, and that's deliberate on purpose on my part. But the best way to get visibility for a new piece of content on social media is to spark a conversation on social media related to the article. This is something I used to do in Google Plus. Every single time I had a new piece of content, I would start a conversation and I would ask a compelling question and get people talking about the topic that I wrote about, and the article is there as a resource. Usually this was something that had happened in social media. Like I would say, if I were doing this today, I might write an article about Twitter Spaces, and I might ask my audience how they feel about this proliferation of social audio. Have they used Clubhouse? Are they interested in using it if it's not on Clubhouse, if that capability is on other platforms? And oh, by the way, here's an article that's talking all about Twitter Spaces, if you want to know more about that particular platform's implementation of social audio. So that gets people commenting on the post itself. In that case, Google Plus, back when I was doing this more. Today it'd be on Facebook probably, or LinkedIn. And that brings engagement, that brings visibility, and then people are going to click through the article. Now, I mentioned I don't do this anymore as much because, quite frankly, I'm really, really time crunched, and this takes time. Not so much to write the post itself. That just takes a few extra minutes. But you have to respond. You have to go into this expecting and knowing that every single time somebody comments or responds, you're going to respond back to them. And you're going to want to do it in a way that's more than just, hey, thanks for their comment. If Jin comes on and he says, yeah, I love Clubhouse, I might respond back with, well, why? What do you like about Clubhouse, Jim? Have you looked at Twitter Spaces? Is there something that Spaces is missing that you particularly prefer about Clubhouse, or you just like the atmosphere of the culture in Clubhouse? And keep that conversation going, because every time somebody else comes back and leaves another comment that teaches the social network's algorithm that this post is interesting and other people might be interested in this post. That's what you want. That's how you're going to play the game a little bit and leverage the existence of an algorithm on those particular social networks to get in front of more people and drive more interest and traffic into that new content.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we have, I think there's another thing about sharing social media content, which comes from blogs, which are these two things, which are, and we have in mind, I think one of the main functions of social media is to build authority to you. Okay, so we have content creation, and another thing that some people, mostly when we are starting, we need to do this content curation. And I made a poll on LinkedIn about what people usually share on LinkedIn, and 41% say that they make a mix between their own content and other people content. 29% say only from others. Okay. 24 don't share, and 6% only my own content. Your thoughts on this? Because I think it's interesting to this way we, because some people are a little bit jealous. It's just by my own content. Some people, or they don't have content, or they don't believe in their content, so they rather share others' content. And I think maybe the most effective approach is make a balance between your own content and curated content from others. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I'll give you everyone's favorite answer, which is it depends. I would caution anyone from being afraid that they're going to be judged, that they're not sharing enough content from other people, or they're not sharing any content from other people, because 9 times out of 10, or probably even 100% of the time, the people doing the judging aren't your target audience. Probably other content creators in your niche, your competition, other marketers. That's not who you're trying to talk to, I would imagine, most of you watching here today. So instead, we need to think about, okay, what's best for my business and what's best for my target audience? And part of the consideration there is, how much content am I creating myself? If you're doing a really good job of creating very rich, in-depth pieces of content, whether it's video, audio, written, it really doesn't matter, but you're creating a lot of content, good content, there's probably something to be said for making sure that your channels, that's all that's there, that your channels are devoted to your content and they're providing that resource to your audience. But most businesses, and I'm speaking very broadly now, when we're talking about small businesses, medium businesses, brick and mortar businesses, corporate businesses, most businesses, they're not in the content creation game, right? They're doing whatever it is that their business does, and content creation is just a part of their overall marketing scheme. Absolutely. So they might be blogging once a month, maybe once a week, probably not much more than that. In those cases, this is where it's a good idea to have sources of information, content, engagement, discussion that you can bring in, that you can curate from these other sources to help keep your social channels and your audience interested and engaged with your brand without having to create a blog post for every single one of those articles. Because let's give you an example. Let's suppose that you're a relatively small to medium business and you're publishing one blog post per month. I would hate to go to your Twitter channel or your Facebook page and you only post to those channels once per month. That's not going to be very effective at building an audience and keeping that audience engaged. You don't need to post 10 times a day, but once a month is kind of the other extreme, right? So we're going to want to fill in at least a few more posts per week, again, depending on who you're trying to compete with and who you're trying to get attention from, that gives them interest. Now, some of these posts could be content that you create that lives on the social network. In other words, you could post a video or a picture and ask a question or share some information. And the post itself is the end game. You just want people to engage with the post. There's no link, right? You're not trying to share anything out. that makes them leave the platform, because those will perform very well on those social networks. The social networks, Facebook wants you to spend more time on Facebook, not go to my blog. So find some opportunities to come up with that. Ask some questions, again, of your audience that gets them interested. By the way, asking questions of your social channels, once you have a bit of an audience on them, is a great way to inform you as to what else you should be writing about. One of the biggest questions most businesses have, and particularly bloggers, is, well, what am I supposed to blog about? Right? And we talked about homework earlier and doing the research. That'll give you some ideas. But if we talk to our audience, we ask them, what are you struggling with? I'll use the silly example of box turtles. If I'm a box turtle company and I'm selling pet food and containers and things for box turtles, I don't know why I like to talk about box turtles. I just do. I don't even own a box turtle. But if that's my job, right? If that's my business and my brand, I might ask a fun post. Hey, what names have you chosen for your pets? And that just gets people talking about their pets. Or I might ask a more serious question. What has your experience been with feeding your pets vegetables, real raw foods versus like processed foods you might buy? Those are some things that you might ask to social to spark some conversations, and pay attention to the responses, because that's going to inform you as to what else you should be talking about.
Absolutely. Well, we have here also Howard. Hello, Howard. And Lillian, welcome. It's so good to see you here. And okay, you mentioned this. I was thinking about this, and you dropped the conversation leading to there, which is okay. And I think also when we are building our content strategy, we should think about sustainability, because I think we see so many people which they start like fire, and within 3 months they became ice. and you made me think about something that for me it's crucial when we want to approach this in a sustainable way, which is evergreen content. First question, do you have in mind a proportion about how can I say it, in-time content and evergreen content? And which tactics, having in mind, for instance, a random tool, Agorapulse, for instance, how we can take advantage of, okay, I have this evergreen content, I have to feed the social media monster. How can I take advantage of an amazing tool like Agorapulse to do this?
Yeah, I don't have a specific proportion that I recommend, because it's a little more complicated. We harken back to the research, right? We had a specific keyword phrase that we identified. This is, in this case, we want to talk about the most important keyword phrase for our business, whatever that might be, because you might do research on blog post ideas and so on. But whatever your brand is, whatever the solution that your brand offers is, there's a keyword phrase, 2, 3, 4 words, that's going to lead directly to sales. That's our most important keyword phrase. And when we have that identified, we need to build content that leads into that phrase and thus leads into a business result, typically a sale. So I usually give this outline or this visualization of a pyramid, where at the very top of the pyramid is a single page that only talks about and focuses on that particular keyword phrase. Like in my case, how to start a blog. That's my number one keyword phrase. It's my most important phrase. So I want to rank on the first page of Google search results for that phrase, and I want to capture a good portion of those 10,000 people per month who are searching, which, by the way, that's part of the process, is looking at not only how many people searched last month, but over time, what is the trend? Maybe it was 10,000 last month, but if it was 20,000 the month before, that's a huge decrease. And I don't necessarily want to target that keyword phrase. Clubhouse is a good example right now. I don't know if Clubhouse is going to last. So I would invest a lot of time in creating content around Clubhouse today if I were being smart about it. So we look at that and we decided that, okay, there's sustainability here, which you mentioned. So we want to create some evergreen content around that particular keyword phrase. So we've identified it. We create one massive article, 2,500 to a 10,000 word post, really going into depth and teaching everything there is to know within reason about that particular topic. And then usually identify 2 or 3 subtopics That'll be other pages in the site that go into depth on those particular subtopics and link up to that main page. And then we get into blog content. What are some blog content that we can create? Top 10 lists, tools that can be used, newsjacking, which is where that in time kind of content comes into play. Those are all blog posts that can still talk about that main topic and link up to it. So we have this visualization of a pyramid in mind. Then the question becomes, how much time do we have to create this content, and how long do we want to wait before we see some results? Because this is going to help us understand and dictate how often we publish and what we're publishing. If you're not in a particular rush and you've already got maybe some content for that pyramid created, well then by all means mix in some in time or some newsjacking types of posts where, like I talked about Twitter Spaces. I might, if I was doing that today, I might talk about, I could totally newsjack today Facebook's announcement and reveal that they're coming out with their own version of social audio. Matt Navarro broke that in his Facebook group today. So I could talk about that totally and create a newsjacking piece about that. But I want to make sure that this is tied somehow to something else in my site. Otherwise, it's just a piece of content that'll go out today, and by tomorrow, it's literally old news. What is the end result that I want from that? Now, for the social media app, it's people who want to learn more about Facebook. I have a Facebook survival kit. People can download it. That helps generate my, build up my email list and so on. So there's be a purpose on that particular site for that brand and for that piece of content. So mix that in together and you get a combination of brand awareness and spikes in traffic and interest, along with ongoing, ever increasing search engine ranking, which drives organic traffic, leads, and sales.
Absolutely. Very important. So another thing, usually people are a little, again, there are two opposite approaches. Some people say, okay, no, I don't think planning social media is good. And some say, okay, it's good because, okay, let's make a kind of a compromise. The right way to plan on social media, Mike?
I would say that an individual who has the time to create an impromptu presence, Twitter is a great example for this. I see some wonderful people who are sparking conversations on Twitter, and I can just tell every tweet that they're sharing is very impromptu and in the moment. They may be tweeting about sporting things or cultural events or political events in general that are happening, and they're sharing their insights. That's very interesting. It's very compelling. It's also extremely time consuming, and it's really only viable for somebody who doesn't have other massive responsibilities throughout the day. If you're a small business owner and you're running a bakery, some kind of boutique cupcake kind of a shop, you don't have time all day long to sit on your phone and tweet. You're baking cupcakes and you're checking out customers and you're taking catering orders over the phone and you're dealing with your vendors and your employees and customers, and social media is not something you have a lot of time for. So this is where, in those kinds of situations, which is most businesses, you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan, and you have to have a tool in place like AgoraPulse that can help you execute that plan day over day over day. So a tool like AgoraPulse, and this is not a plug for AgoraPulse, this is any social media management tool, will allow you to create the content in advance and then schedule it out. Again, Twitter's a great example. If you want to be present, if you want to build an audience on Twitter, you need to be tweeting. You don't have to tweet every 15 minutes, but you need to have that regular outgoing reminder that you're alive, that you exist as a brand, and you're inviting your audience to engage with you. So you can sit down once a month, or you can have a social media manager or a consultant help you craft a whole series of tweets. And I really encourage people to have themes where maybe they're not talking about the exact same thing, but they have buckets, whether it's, weekly, daily, monthly, whatever the case might be. Have a theme, have something that you're trying to accomplish on a regular basis, and build out that content. And the beauty of a tool like a Agorapulse is you could do it in a spreadsheet, right? You can have a column for the tweet, a column for links, if there are any links or resources that you want to share, and then you can just bulk import that into the social media management tool and let the tool tweet those out once a day, all month long. And then you use the tool on your phone to monitor the engagement and keep on top of the replies and the comments and things that you get on those channels. And then rinse and repeat month after month after month. Now you've got an active and engaged social presence, and you're building that community, and you're offering resources, and you're not spending a lot of time every single day on social.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Mike, we are almost finishing, but before that, I have the kind of wrap up question, which is, well, it's kind of two questions. First, does it and it was the title of our show, does it still works on 2021 using blogging and social media? And also, we are starting today our blogging journey. 3 advices.
Absolutely, blogging still works today, and it works very, very well with social media. We kind of touched on a bunch of these points. First of all, you can use social media to promote your new content, just like we promoted the show, right? I mean, you posted to LinkedIn, you posted to Twitter, and as a guest on the show, that gave me an opportunity to amplify those posts and make sure that my audience knew that I was going to be here today talking with you guys and sharing my information and my experience and knowledge. The reverse is also true, right? Where you're giving me questions and the audience is giving you questions which you're feeding to me. And that might spark ideas for me on other things I could write about. So we can use social media to promote our content, but we can also use social media to connect with our audience, engage with them, and understand them better. What do they need? Sometimes that's going to inform content. Sometimes that might inform brand and business decisions. I mentioned at the outset, I work for Agorapulse. We're a social media management tool. We don't do everything. No tool does. How do we figure out what we're going to develop next? How do we figure out what feature we're going to add or improve? Well, we listen to our audience. They tell us, gosh, it'd be really nice if I could run a report for my clients that included their Facebook page and their LinkedIn page and their Twitter account at the same time. I said, oh, that's a good idea. We should do that. So we did that, right? We create what we call a unified report. So you could just check the profiles, include it on one report. That's really important. That's called social listening, where you're paying attention to what your audience wants. Sometimes maybe they're not even talking to you. They're just talking in general terms. Hey, I wish I could do this for my audience. And if you're paying attention, you're using tools to help you pay attention, you can use that. So definitely there's a place for sure today for blogging and social media. 3 quick tips. First of all, most importantly, write about what you know. If you are trying to write about something that you're just not familiar with and you're going to Google and you're looking at what other people have written and you're doing research, that's not a blog, that's a research paper for college. Try to avoid that. Okay? I mean, there are instances where you're going to have to do some more digging and that sort of thing to create a good piece of content. I totally understand that. But most of the time, if you stick with what you know, you're going to be speaking to your audience and resonating with them. Second tip, have a tool like Evernote where you're capturing every single idea that you've ever had or that's ever been given to you for content. I'm going to probably get out of this interview and think back to some of the things we talked about and some of the things that you asked me about and realize, oh, I have never written about that particular topic, and I should, and I'm going to put that into Evernote as an idea for a blog post. Which brings me to the third point, listen. You got to pay attention to what your audience is saying, the people that you're talking to, whether they're your readers, whether they're your viewers, whether they're colleagues, right, in the industry. I would not be where I am today, if I hadn't listened to friends and colleagues over the past decade. There were people 10 years ago, Stefan Hovnanian, Jeff C., Dustin Stout, who looked at what I was doing and the way that I was promoting my content on social media. They said, Mike, you're a good writer, but you're being kind of spammy with the whole link thing. You need to rethink what you're doing. So I took that advice and it made a huge difference and impact in how I went about doing my business. So those are my tips.
Absolutely amazing, amazing. And we have here also Brigetti from South Africa. We had everywhere, and also
Lobo.
Lillian. Lillian, she's saying coffee is the new thing on social nowadays. Yes,
I've got my
absolutely,
2 cup mug right here.
absolutely. So before you leave, you have to leave here the guest suggestions because it's kind of obligation for my guests. So let's do it. So, Michael, Mike, usually my guests, I ask them some suggestions, which are a professional you recommend, a book, a tool, a habit you have, which important. It should be legal and healthy. A
Oh, these
movie and
caveats.
a TV show. Are you ready to start? I will remind
Okay.
each item. A professional.
I'm gonna go with Jen Herman. I don't know if you've had Jen on the show. Have you?
No, not yet, but I
Okay,
think
perfect. Instagram is still all the rage. It's still one of the most engaging platforms, and it continues to change and evolve. They're adding, reels and TikTok type features and shopping and so on. So, yeah, Jen Herman is someone that you need to talk to.
perfect, perfect. Thank you. And now a book.
I'm going to duck off screen because I'm going to grab it. Whoosh.
Okay.
Cumulative Advantage by
Oh
Mark
my
Schultz.
God,
See if I
amazing
can,
book. Yes.
get the focus on this. I just finished this. He sent it to me a month or so ago, and I saved it because I knew I was going to a beach on vacation over spring break with my kids, and I read it over spring break, and it was phenomenal. Everyone should pick this up. Everyone needs to understand what Mark has kind of gone through the time to research and figure out, which is how people that we see who are super successful and name brands, either just celebrity status or at least names, well-known names in our industry, how they got to where they got. Read the book.
Absolutely. I had Mark kind of a month ago as my and
Okay,
he was
great.
amazing. It was
So
an
everybody
amazing
watching today, go back and watch that
Yeah,
episode,
absolutely,
and you'll be able to hear
absolutely.
from the horse's mouth. Do it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now a tool.
Well, I got to go with Agorapulse.
Okay.
Agorapulse, like I said,
Quite
is the
fair.
number one rated social media management tool. And by rating, I'm talking about actual users. You go to G2 Crowd or some of these other sites where they aggregate reviews. We're the easiest, we're the best support, we're the most affordable for growing agencies. And I say that having come from a background where I used to write about all the tools. I used to be a big fan of some other tools. And then I discovered Agorapulse and fell in love. And this is before they hired me or anything like that. So I was a raving fan before I came to work for it. I literally wrote the book on one of the competitors, and now I work for and promote and support Agorapulse.
Absolutely perfect. A habit.
A habit: write and read every single day. Now, when I say write, it doesn't necessarily be blog content, but try to set aside 15 to 30 minutes every single day to write, whether it's journaling, working on emails. I don't mean in email, but just emails that you might send to people, like a template type of a thing, or of course blog content, because writing is a skill that we aren't born with. We're not good writers and communicators out of the cradle. We have to practice that. We have to want to get better at it. And this is a skill that will help you in every aspect of your life.
And reading, it's a good tool to be a better writer, right?
Exactly.
Perfect. A movie.
Oh gosh. I have lots of movies. I'm going to recommend one that might seem a little odd to people. That's Interstellar. It's this really interesting film that I have fallen in love with. The music is phenomenal. The story is fantastic, and the dialogue is so good. It's science fiction, but not like in a mystical Star Wars kind of a science fiction. It's more like it's this planet just a little bit in the future. What might have happened if our planet is going through some cataclysmic global issues, and I just love that film.
Perfect. And now a TV show.
Going to do a little bit of a throwback here to Firefly. Joss Whedon's cowboy science fiction short-lived series. Unfortunately, it was canceled prematurely, many of us feel, but super, super fun and enjoyable to watch.
Absolutely. Well, we have last comment here from Brigetti. She's saying, excellent advice to remain in tune with what your followers are saying and to pivot or do better. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Brigetti, it must be legal. Yes.
Yep. Reading and writing is legal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Mike, thank you so much. I will ask you, please, to tell people where they can find you.
Easiest way to find me is Blogging Brute. That's bloggingbrute.com or at Blogging Brute on the major social channels. This was a nickname that Jeff C. bestowed upon me many, many years ago because we were doing a live video like this. We had a group of guys that would interview a guest, and we were interviewing the producer of Pretty Woman, Gary Goldstein. And during the interview, I was taking notes on Evernote. I was actually typing notes. And so within about 15 minutes after the interview, after the broadcast ended, I had the blog post recap.
Oh my God.
And so, yeah, he dubbed me the Blogging Brute, and I've kind of ran with that name. So Blogging Brute everywhere if you want to learn more about blogging and content marketing.
Perfect, perfect. Well, time to say goodbye. Time to say thank you so much, Mike. It was so good to have you here. All the knowledge you share with my audience. Thank you so much. Hope to have you here back soon. Maybe to talk about your book. Maybe, who knows? Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, if you don't mind, I will put in the comments the link to your book on Amazon.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, this was a collaborative effort on social media. You can go to socialmediabook.shop and learn more about the ultimate guide to social media.
Okay, you got a fan here. I would love to have you on my platform, Lillian. Mike. Perfect. Thank you, Lillian. Well, thank you so much for all of you who were watching our show. It was, I hope you had so much fun, and also you got so many insights as I did, because it was really, really an amazing conversation. Good is not enough. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all of you who will tune after to watch the replay. And if you have any question, please write them down and tag Mike so he can answer you. Okay, so thank you so much. I hope you had a good rest of week. If you are going to weekend, have a nice weekend, and we will be back soon. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.